Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, Canadian Missing Project, a copyrighted edition for a video channel. And this is a video about missing people, so pay close attention. This isn't about the news, this isn't about a book review, this is about just missing people and related topics as such. And many times, as you have commented, we talk about mental health issues, and that's where I'm going to start today. Many of you have probably never seen this man before. His name is Meadows, and I have a great deal of respect for Austin. And I'm going to talk to you about him because Major League Baseball made this press release the other day. Meadows prioritizing mental health won't return this season. In sharing his experience, the outfielder hopes to encourage others to seek help. The sight of Meadows doing running and agility drills on the field at Comerica Park on Friday afternoon was a familiar one. The Tigers outfielder had been working out daily before most of the team arrives as he rehabs from an Achilles issue. The mental health struggles of a difficult season, however, had been virtually invisible until he revealed them late Friday. This is on September 2nd, 2022. What I have told very few people is that I also have been struggling with my mental health in a way that has extended my time away from the game that I love so much. Meadows said in a statement he released to social media, quote, "I've been dealing with this privately with a great team of professionals, but I need to continue to put in hard work off the field towards feeling mentally healthy." End of quotes. Starting again, quote, "While I've been back in the clubhouse the past few weeks and plan to remain with the club through the end of the season, I'm still not ready to return to the field. I'm so grateful for my family, my teammates, and the Tigers organization for supporting me through this. I can't do this alone, and I hope by sharing my experience I can touch at least one person who might be going through their own struggles and encourage them to reach out for someone to help." That's a good man, Austin. That's a really good man. And why do I say that? Because people in the public eye, me for one, take a lot of heat, take a lot of ridicule. Fans are sometimes really tough on a guy like Austin that may make fun of him for coming out and talking about his mental health issues. Or may decide to dig at him thinking that's a weak point in his personality. Yeah, it's a disgusting thing in life that we have to deal with. But Austin did because trying to help people like you and me. Austin's not the only one. Like I've said in the past, I know 2 NHL goalies that are facing very, very tough mental health issues. It's a tough road. You and I both know. And I admire somebody like Austin stepping up. So thank you. Next article. This one is about Bed Bath & Beyond, a store that most of us have shopped at one time. The CFO, Gustavo Arnal, died by suicide, medical examiner says on CNBC, posted September 4th. Bed Bath & Beyond on Sunday confirmed that the chief financial officer died after police had said earlier that he fell to his death on Friday. The medical examiner told CNBC that Arnal died by suicide. Bed Bath & Beyond said in a statement on Sunday that he was instrumental in guiding the organization throughout the coronavirus pandemic. He died 2 days after the company announced plans to close 150 of its stores. The New Jersey-based retailer also said it would be cutting 20% of its staff and added that it had secured more than $500 million in new financing, including a loan. He jumped from his 18th floor residence. He was named in a lawsuit last month regarding his stock sales. I tell you this story because it doesn't matter if you're a wealthy person, you're a famous baseball player, or whatever. When mental health hits you, it hits you square in the eye. And sometimes a decision about taking your own life could be a 15-minute decision. Everything comes to a halt right at that moment, and you feel the need to go do it. And that's really the need to go and contact somebody. All these decisions are always done in private. There aren't others around. And that is one of the things that I really try to push, is that not to isolate. When you isolate yourself, you tend to live in your own brain. You don't sometimes see the light of the day if you're living in a closed-in apartment, house, cabin. Now, obviously, there may be other issues, but to take your life, please don't. Next article. Hey Dave, I hope this email finds you and your family well, and old Huck is doing well as well. Yeah, she's laying right here sleeping. I'm sending all my love to you. You're so strong, and I know Ben will be so proud of everything you're still doing. I had to laugh at last night's video. You're reading a letter and the person said, "Don't stop looking for signs from Ben. He's still close by." A few seconds later, Huck started barking and going a bit mad. Maybe she can see what we cannot. Maybe. I'm new to your channel. I've watched your films but not read the books yet. I can't afford the postage, but I'm working on my local library to stock them. Anyway, I thought I would let you know my experience of an orb, since there have been much talk about them recently. I'm from Glasgow, Scotland, where this happened. It was in the early 80s. I was 10 or 11. I know this as I remember the school the next day. They let us off our homework for reasons that will become apparent. It was winter. I was playing outside and it was dark. It gets dark here around 4 p.m. in the winter. I was with my brother and 4 or 5 other kids playing in the street. It was a strange night. There was a power cut in the area. We would get them at odd times, but this one lasted about 12 hours. Dog walkers were out with torches, and I remember neighbors popping in to use my mom's cooker as it was gas and theirs was electric. Anyway, whilst playing in the street, I saw an orange orb. It looked like the sun, and it was quite large, but not high in the sky. We were mesmerized. A few boys ran to hide, but I stood in the road and watched it move as it followed the curve of the street till it disappeared overhead. I just remember feeling shocked but excited, telling my parents, who questioned what we saw but eventually believed us. My mom kept an eye out in the local paper, etc., to see if anyone else had reported it. To this day, I can't find a thing online about it, but I will always look into the sky hoping to see something similar. Going off topic, Dave. I've been looking into missing people in Scotland and to some extent other areas of the UK. There are many recent cases that seem to make your profile. One case involved an individual, and she was found the next day with sniffer dogs about a mile from her car, and it stated she was mauled by wildlife. What? Now, we don't have bears or anything like that here, but maybe a badger or a fox. Seems unlikely. Her death is not being treated as suspicious, but there's nothing else about it online. It raises more questions than answers. Why did she walk through the fields in the dark when the AAA were on their way? Why can't I find her name anywhere? Was the mauling her cause of death, or was she succumbed and then eaten by the animals? There has been reports of UFOs in this area and even cryptid sightings. In 1999, 2 police officers witnessed a baboon-like creature disappear in the undergrowth. I could go on. So much to look into here. Maybe I need to take a leaf out of your book and start to research them. Wouldn't know where to start, but I'm so intrigued. Again, thank you for everything by doing and bringing in these findings to our attention. It really has opened my eyes. Thank you. Well, one thing that law enforcement will say is, in this case, if the person was killed or had animal predation, it can mean a lot of things. So first of all, a lot of cities have wild dogs. And these wild dogs get a pack mentality. And sometimes they will surround something, even a human, and attack it. And those attacks are killed by I mean, those attacks are done by wild animals. So when you think of that, you tend to think, oh, something really wild, a lion, a tiger, or a bear. But no. Wild dogs are just as dangerous. So, my kind of twist on that. Hey Dave, new letter. These weekly videos are a source of comfort to many of us. And according to more than a few letters, a life-saving proponent as well. You've reached out and touched those lives which would have ended much too prematurely, causing unimaginable pain to their families. Each loss is deeply felt and will truly hurt someone close by. My mother committed suicide when I was very young, severely impacting my life. I still don't like to talk about it, even 3 decades later. Taking a life is no small matter, especially when one's own, and guarantee it will adversely affect someone around them. It's much appreciated that you continue to give voice to the topic, to recommend NAMI, N-A-M-I, and other resources, thereby preventing more loss of life. I wish there were more people like you, Dave, in the world. Be a better place. I'm humbled. Thank you. Changing from such a heavy topic, I find it fascinating to see the rise in UFOs in mainstream media. There's a lot of people out there that are taking your stories and twisting them and taking credit. And it bothers me. Missing 411 is starting to enter mainstream consciousness. With all the work you put in, Dave, it's nice to see it finally receiving such attention. Although I feel the credit isn't duly appointed nearly sufficiently enough. Prey, on the other hand, is outright outstanding and should definitely be watched by all. The best predator yet raises some important questions. For instance, why the switch from the UFO to UAP? I think our government wanted to brand it differently and put their own new twist on it and get away from the older stories. And maybe not have people say, oh, you essentially lied about it for 50 years. Now all of a sudden you want to acknowledge it. Oh, gee, how nice. Is it to throw out yet another known acronym to the general public to make them lose interest and switch to the latest TikTok video instead? It's almost as if the media in the past has been distracting the public from truths it's not been quite ready for. Or perhaps the latest switch, such as the release of the Pentagon videos, is preparing us for truths we may now be approaching. I don't know if I believe in coincidences so much, but you and Missing 411 in general seem to abound in them. Too many cases have been much too similar, with too many correlations and data points matching up, like a script on repeated again and again. It's extremely eerie, which probably comes as an understatement to longtime villagers, but still apt nonetheless. Speaking of coincidences, lately the letters of your videos have focused heavy on orbs, something I'm not personally familiar with, but just one of those things that seem to happen to other people. Something very far removed from the mundane world I live in. Come from a very grounded family, and every time I mention Missing 411 to my dad, I see his eyes glaze over. I can tell he lets me prattle on just about sheer politeness. Politeness and politis. I don't possess quite the charisma or storytelling ability as you, Dave. He doesn't believe in UFOs or the supernatural, so I must say I was highly surprised when he told me about an incident which occurred last month in mid-August. Occasionally, my dad likes to sleep outside on the back field of his ranch house, situated in a lovely field of the Bitterroot Mountains, to count the stars and escape the stifling confines of man-made walls. He's faced quite a few health complications over his life. He's in his 70s, has knee surgery curtailing his mobility. Just a little before this incident, a prognosis of another major health concern had just arisen, although more tests were to be completed before a final diagnosis. He likes to sleep outside, looking up at the vastness of the world, contemplating much deeper thoughts. But still looking up at the stars, thinking about life, a bright ball of light suddenly burst into fiery light above him. The orb-like object was yellow-green in color and much too high to instinctively pinpoint the exact size, but likely bigger than a softball. It split into 3, shooting rays downward, surrounding him in a tree of 5-meter circle. A jolt of electricity shock threw him, jumping him from his prone position, surgery, knee and all, straight up into a standing position. A 70-year-old man, and then the light of the orb vanished, just turned off, leaving him standing and bewildered. The first thing he thought to do, still surprised and shocked beyond measure, was look at the clock. He had bedded down at 3:20 beside him. It was 3:26 a.m. It wasn't fear that overtook him, though, nor even during the initial experience, but instead a deep sense of calm and contentment, like the light. Never before have I heard my father talk of such things. He's not a hippie. Whoa. Early in the letter, it said your dad didn't believe in UFOs, UAPs. What was that came out of the sky? It wasn't a B-52, wasn't a rock, wasn't a bat. It was a UFO. It was unidentified and it was flying. He didn't even bother to tell me the story until now. He did confer with his doctor about it, ruling out some sort of medication or something, and the doctor said it could possibly be three things. One, that it was sleep paralysis, where the front of his brain wakes up before the back of his brain. My father's adamant he never fell asleep, though, lucidly remembering right up to the moment the orb appeared. Sleep paralysis, as the name suggests, isn't very conducive to jumping upright either, especially right after coming out of it. Most reports are of a sensation or something weighing down heavily upon the chest. Number two, that it was E.T. Oh boy. The doctor, of course, was kidding. Why was he, of course, kidding? But I know what you must be thinking. The coincidences are there. You only recently start talking about orbs, more of late asking questions and inquiring after any stories. Although it seems usually the orbs are to be avoided from most of these reports. Weird coincidence, my grounded father would be the source of another bizarre happening. 3, it was a miracle of God. From what I can infer, my dad probably believes in this one the most. Usually doesn't like to share his optimism. He's realistic and says he lived a good life, so whatever happens will happen. He truly believes this orb helped him heal, though, and that his next diagnosis will come up clean. This alone, whatever truly happened, makes me happy the incident occurred. Since an optimistic outlook helps no matter what, since my father believes it really happened, I always will be thankful. And truthfully, although the doctor was polite enough and knew better than to outright voice, there's a fourth possibility that my dad is just straight up nuts, laughing out loud. But I love him. He's always been an intelligent, compassionate man. I believe him. I don't know what to do with this story other than to relay it, to sift it amongst all the others you keep, Dave, and hope it contributes a little more to some type of understanding. I would apologize for the longer letter, but I'm not really sorry. Thanks for all you do. I think the missing 411 hat is awesome. Yeah. How do I get one? Look forward to the next video. How do you get one? Go to our website. NA, like North America, NABigfootsearch.com. NA, like North America, NABigfootsearch.com. That's where our own online store is for hats, books, everything. Next story. Hey Dave, as I listened to some of the statements that were made by people in the video, it caused me to think about the missing 411 profile points you have listed on your videos. The following subjects were mentioned in videos. Number 1, extraterrestrial involvement in World War II, particularly with regard to German military technology. Parentheses, you have mentioned that a number of the missing 411 people have German surnames. What if ET involvement in Germany also included human ET hybridization? That's a pretty good Goomba of a jump. Number 2, speculation has been made that one of the reasons for cattle mutilations is due to one of the more species of ETs having lost the ability to reproduce. This doesn't make sense to me considering that a significant number of people who believe in extraterrestrial beings also believe that human beings were created by them. However, it has been stated that there's more than one type of ET race, so it's plausible that one of the ET races that didn't create us is trying to figure out how we were created, which then makes sense with regard to cattle mutilations. This also makes sense with regard to the 411 cases in light of the fact that people on the extreme ends of the several spectrums, that being intelligence, physical condition, religion, fervor, etc., have disappeared under unusual circumstances. If an ET race is seeking to create hybrids, would they want to incorporate the best DNA and avoid the worst? You'd think so. Number 3, it was mentioned that reptilians are thought to be shape-shifting as well as cloak themselves. So maybe they could look like bears, gorillas, wolves, and something like the thing in the movie Predator. Maybe an ET race has the ability to create AI robots that look like a child's grandmother. I don't know. Number 4, it was stated that there have been a couple of reports where a UFO was seen siphoning up water from a lake. I've heard many of those. Maybe after they grab their targeted human being, they stop to get water too. I don't mean to sound insensitive or like I'm not talking about anything seriously. I care a lot about what happens in our world, and I take missing 411 cases very seriously. I'm just trying to stay sane in a crazy world. I'm sharing these points simply as food for thought and nothing more. The missing 411 cases are so bizarre and so complex that I couldn't begin to try to explain them all or figure it out. At best, I can only share tidbits and pieces of information that I stumble across. One other thing I wanted to say before closing that I became curious about Yosemite National Park after watching one of your videos, and because I'd never been there, I looked it up using the satellite feature in Google Maps. I've mentioned to you before that I'm in the autism spectrum. As a result of my particular set of autistic traits, I often perceive things differently than non-autistic people. The first thought that entered my mind when I saw the texture of the mountains in Yosemite was, look at all the secret compartments those mountains have. Interesting. Next letter. I'll just get to the point here. I was lost and stalked by something I'd never seen when I was a young child. Here's the story. I was very active in the woods. I would hike around and find hills, cliffs to climb. I found a cliff that wanted to hike to a ravine, but didn't have time because it was getting dark. So I made my way home thinking I had a good bearing on that creek bed. I made it home, and the next day I woke up early to get my dog and headed into the woods behind our home to make my way back to that creek bed and the big wall I found. Probably at about 6 or 7 a.m. I left, I think. I don't know how I missed it, but I did. I never found it. I searched for a few hours, and then I realized I was lost. I didn't know where to go. It's all hills and valleys in those woods, close to the Shawnee State Forest. After a while of walking, I was starting to realize how dire my situation might be, and I stopped and panicked for a moment. My dog was staying really close to me. I thought maybe he could sense my nervousness. I began to hear noises of something moving and breaking branches. I thought it must be some type of animal. Small, I was hoping. But I couldn't pinpoint at first. It sounded like branches breaking. They were far apart but seemed to get closer. I'd hike and then stop to listen. They were definitely getting closer each time I stopped, and I was able to pin them in the direction that I was walking. As they got closer, I realized my dog was getting really nervous. He started barking and circling me. He was in a state of emergency. Frantic is the only way I could describe it to you. Like he feared for my safety, and that's when the noises got even louder. It must have been 20 yards or less away from me, and I could not see what it was. I called to my dog as I ran away from that noise, and he followed. I must have sprinted through the woods until I collapsed from exhaustion. And my guess is I made it out of whatever area that thing didn't want me. By this time I was gone for about 10 hours. I did finally make it to a clearing that led up to a farm, and the people there gave me a ride to the local gas station where the clerk knew who I was. He knew my mom because it's the only one in the area, Travel Hut in Dongola, Illinois. It was probably about 10 p.m. when I finally got back home. I don't know what was stalking me. There are too many big predators in that area. There are not too many big predators. Bobcats and coyotes would be the biggest known. And those things are not known for attacking humans unless they're rabid. And if it was rabid, I feel like I would have just been attacked, not stalked. Keep in mind I was young, but I was well versed in the woods and wildlife in that area. I hiked them daily and was always catching snakes and creepy crawlers. To this day, I have no idea what it was, but certainly was not something I want to encounter again. And I don't believe it was a coyote at all. I was lucky to make it out of there. I just wanted to email you because listening to the stories of missing 411 got me thinking about the experience. I want to say thank you for all your work you do. Thank you. So what do you do if you're walking through the woods, hear some noise, and you're by yourself? I know what I'd do. I'd keep moving, but I'd be taking pictures 360 degrees all the way around me. Because things seem to come up in those pictures that we can't see. It's happened many times. And probably the best one I've ever seen. If you get over to the Montana Vortex, they have an employee there named Melissa. Melissa took a picture, held the camera up, took a picture. It was a morning before anyone was there, just her and Joe and a few others. She didn't think much of the picture. Sent it to her husband, sent it to some friends. Her husband got back to her and said, "Hey, Melissa, what's that behind you?" And behind her, probably 20 feet behind her, is the head of a Bigfoot, clear as day. She's one of those people, I believe 100%, and it's one of those pictures that cannot be explained. I still can't. I've told Joe before that I think it's one of the best pictures ever, and for what it's worth. Now, Huck is sleeping. I don't want to wake her, but I thought I'd give you a shot before we. There's her. How you doing, Huck? You're a good girl. And she's been sleeping here the whole time. Almost started to snore a minute ago. So, we'll leave her to her sleeping. But since this is Huck TV, I want to make sure that we get in the executive producer. So, on to the stories. First story is one that I've talked about one time a long time ago. But it's really important to understand this, and I doubt you remember it because I don't think I covered it very thoroughly. There's a man missing from Crater Lake National Park. Now, Crater Lake was covered in part in our first movie, Missing 411. Documentary you can watch online for free. I encourage you to do it. The case happened September 24th, 1939. His name was Alfred Goetze, German heritage, 68 years old. Alfred was a saw filer for the park. They were building the park and they had a mill way out in the middle of nowhere. And he hadn't been seen for a couple days because no one had been to the mill. He was working there by himself. They went to the mill, looked at it, and determined that nobody had made a meal or done anything there for 2 days. So sometime after the last person saw him, soon after that, he disappeared. Well, the park superintendent realized what happened, got told of the missing person, sent one of the park employees to Medford to get more searchers. The Crater Lake, it sits in this crater. It's a very interesting place. In 1943, the lake is 1,943 feet deep and is the deepest lake in the United States, according to the National Park Service. And it's one of the deepest in the world. It's 5 miles in diameter. It's in the Cascade Mountains, and it has very, very clean water. Now, Mount Mazama collapsed 7,700 years ago after an eruption, making the bowl. The water in the lake is 103 feet clear, meaning you could see something 103 feet down. Amazing. But when Alfred disappeared, they started to search, and they searched for 8 days and nights. And during the time of the search, it snowed 4 to 5 inches. And the search team stated that it was difficult for anyone to follow tracks in that area because of the snow. After 8 days, everyone thought that they sure would have found something of him. And when they found nothing, theories started to abound. One of them is that he got somehow hiked out of the area, then got a ride from somebody to Ashland where he lived. But they went to Ashland, talked to his wife and family. Nobody had seen him, and he never had returned. Now, Native Americans stay away from Crater Lake. It has bad mojo. There's supposed to be something that lives in the lake. There have been several missing 411 disappearances in the area that I've talked about in the past. A small boy disappeared there, was never found. There was a middle-aged man that went to visit the lake that disappeared in the middle of winter. No idea how he got out. And then it's found 12 miles into the wilderness, deceased during the summer months. This is during the time there was 20 feet of snow at the lake. How did he get 12 miles into the wilderness when no ATVs and no snowmobiles are ever in that area? Yeah, it's a strange place. So that's our first national park case. Second national park case involves a Canadian who came to the United States who disappeared. And this happened at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Darko Nagy, N-A-G-Y, 21 years old, went missing February 1st, 1982 at about 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Now, he disappeared on the side of Mauna Loa, which is on the island of Hawaii. And it's one of the biggest volcanoes in the world. Now, the island of Hawaii and the volcano the park were established in 1961, about 505 square miles. There's 2 active volcanoes. In 1987, UNESCO gave the title as a World Heritage Site to Mauna Loa, and it's erupted 36 times since 1843. Yeah, active location, I'd say. Here's a picture of the volcano, what it looks like. It's gorgeous. Well, anyhow, Nagy comes here with a friend, a man named Ian Ward, who's 22. Nagy's 21. Hometown, London, Ontario. And they arrived in the islands on January 30th. Well, they get a rental car. And they decide they're going to drive to the strip road on Mauna Loa with the intention to climb up the mountain to the snow line at about 12,000 feet and then eventually to summit. Men started their hike about 8:15 in the morning. About 2 hours later, Ian tells Darko that he's tired. In truth, he had blisters on his feet and he didn't know if he could make it. They both agreed to meet back at the car at 4 p.m. Well, by 4 p.m., Ian had gotten lost trying to get back, and he ended up several thousand feet below the car in a city called Volcano. And some residents drove him back to his car. He ended up getting back about 6 o'clock. Well, he had the keys to the car, and he figured that Darko would be waiting for him. He wasn't there. And late that night, the National Park Service was notified that he was missing. Ian advised the national parks that Darko had no equipment, he had no food, he had no water, he was wearing tennis shoes, a t-shirt, and a light jacket. That's crazy. That's crazy to do this, to climb a mountain in that type of attire. But in February, this happened all on February 1st, 1982. Well, on February 2nd, there were 30 ground searchers, 2 helicopters, including a Hawaii County fire chopper that was scanning the area. On the 3rd, 50 ground searchers, a helicopter, and an organized team that was working on grid searches. On the 4th of February, there was no air support because there was bad weather in on the summit and going down to a lower elevation. On the 6th, 2 Marine Corps helicopters from a local base came and supported and flew the area multiple times. On the 7th, the lower slopes in the area where Darko and Ian separated were searched. Again, nothing was found. Except a man named Dennis Jakahi. And he was the number 2 man in Hawaii's transit system. Went pig hunting on the island 2 years earlier. And it was legal to hunt the pigs because they were an invasive species in the park. And they had designated areas. So he went in there to hunt alone. He disappeared. There was an 8-day search, all-out search, to try to find Dennis. And then his family searched 3 additional days. And then they went back the following year and searched some more. Well, as the helicopter's flying over an area at a lower elevation looking for Darko, quote, in plain view, laying on the lava in an open field was Dennis Jakahi. Article stated they didn't know how he was missed by previous searchers. Obviously long dead for 2 years, nothing left but skeleton and some clothing. But how odd is that they're searching for one man, and they're searching an area that they had searched multiple times before for the same man, and they stumble across the body of another man that had been missing for 2 years. And they were in an area that had been previously searched. Wide open in a lava field. That's kind of like, here I am, come find me, I'm right here. And then the other question, do you know how many helicopter flights with tourists are flown around those volcanoes daily? Dozens? Over the course of 2 years? Thousands? How was this missed? How could it have been missed, friends? Think about it. Next story, our 3rd national park case. Involved a man named David Allen. David, 21 years old at the time, went missing July 25th, 1973. His home was in Altadena, California. He was employed by a place called Camp Denali, primarily a fly-in wilderness retreat where they offer fishing, hiking, guided hikes, guided fishing, canoe etc., for $1,000 a day. Stay in these little camps that are gorgeous and a beautiful place. Well, David was working for them, had a day off on July 25th, 1973. Now, the one thing that the articles did state is that he knew the area well. With that in mind, he was working for Camp Denali, just outside the park. Well, I thought you'd like to know what the mission of Camp Denali is. It says providing active learning experiences and fostering stewardship of the natural world through a tradition of excellence and community in place. Our long-standing family ownership is committed to preserving and refining the fundamental elements of our mission: excellence, community, and place. Your Camp Denali experience is personal. It is a unique blend of camaraderie among fellow adventurers and staff in a wilderness environment without parallel. Now remember, David worked for this company. At the core of our guest experience is a chance to look close to the land and explore Denali's wilderness to learn about its ecology, history, etc. More than facts and figures about Denali, we hope our guests return home with new ways of seeing, understanding, and taking care of the natural world in their backyards. In addition, we hope that our continual improvements to the environmental sustainability of our operation will provide an opportunity for our guests, staff, and other small business owners in Alaska to learn about viable alternatives to the status quo. Interesting. And the high quality people that they hire would be indicative about David. Now, where is this place? Well, on the 25th of July, 1973, David, at 8 a.m., was at the Mount Eielson Visitor Center, stating he was going to hike around Mount Eielson and into the Red Mountain area. Here is Mount Denali. Denali just squashes everything out here. It's gigantic. But this hike through the valley was nothing special. More up close look is that he left the visitor center here, Mount Eielson, Red Mountain. He's going to hike up this valley full of tundra, lots of water, and big mountains. Remember, he was extremely familiar with this area, had worked it, had known it, had taught it, etc. Well, the 25th was his day off. Checked into the visitor center, checked into hike Red Mountain area, and he's off hiking. He doesn't come back that night. He doesn't return to work. And then on the 26th, the following day, the National Park Service was notified that there's a missing person in their area. Rangers were dispatched immediately. The area was described as tundra, water, fairly easy hiking. Well, the Rescue Crew Coordination Center at Elmendorf Air Force Base was activated, and they supplied air support. 40 National Park personnel, 2 planes, and a helicopter were used in the effort to find David Allen. It was over a week-long search, and on August 3rd, they terminated the effort because they found nothing, and they could not find any indicators about, even after he left the visitor center, how far up the trail he made it, etc. Dan Kuhn was the National Park Superintendent for Denali at the time. He made a fairly lengthy statement about their disappearances on Mount Denali regularly, where people are hurt, injured, but they're always found. There's been just a handful of small disappearances on Denali where people fell and have not been found. But Kuhn said one thing. He says, this is the first time somebody's ever disappeared in our park, not on Denali, and was not found. He said, that's unusual. So what happened to David Allen? Well, during the search, his parents actually flew out from Altadena, monitored the search location, wanted to see for themselves what it was, where it was. And after the search was over, they took his belongings and they left. And to this day, still never found. Now, very true, Alaska's a rough place. Very true that you could get lost and you could die. But somebody with David's experience, background in that area, makes no sense to me. Sorry. But that's just me. I hope that this show sticks with you. Now, all three of the cases involved disappearances in the national park. Alfred Goetze, 68 years old, disappears from a work site inside the park. Crater Lake, never found. Darko Nagy, 21 years old, trying to climb in Volcano's National Park. Disappeared, is never found. And friends, there's no ground cover in the area where he disappeared. It's wide open. Just like Dennis Jakahi being found, wide open lava field. There's no place to hide. Then you have David Allen, who disappears at Denali National Park. Knew exactly where he was going, knew the trail he was going to be on, and still unable to be found. 3 cases. Thank you for being here. Please go out and do something nice for somebody today. Make their day special. Let them know that other people care, because other people in this village do care. Please put this on your other social media sites. It would be greatly appreciated. Paulides out.